Del Rio, Texas, home of Lake Amistad. Your host, Rob Wade. This guy who dives. This episode of This Guy Who Dives recorded live Saturday, 12 September 2015. Episode 142. The Pattern Works. And welcome to another episode of This Guy Who Dives, formerly known as Two Guys Who Dives. And I've got a dog that is really screaming to get included here. And that would be Mr. Ronan. Let me switch cameras here. Say hi to everybody. Come on. Not going to say hi. Oh, even after toothpaste, your breath is kicking. See if I can get him shifted behind me here. See, I have this nice... pardon me for that, folks. I have this really nice, well, it's not super nice, but it's nice for me. I like it. Office chair, high back chair behind me. And, but I rarely get to actually fully sit in it because our dogs like to vie for the two positions that you can have of the little dachshunds sitting behind me, with me still sitting on the very edge of the chair. So literally, I spend most of my time on the edge of my seat because I have dogs behind me. So I hope they're comfortable. In fact, let me switch to the co-host. Yeah, you can see other way. See behind me there, I've got Ronan and Grazer are both back there. So, sorry for this slight delay, and I will warn you right off the bat, at some point we might end up locking up the system and losing you because the XSplit developers just released a 2.5 version, and they've added a number of features, some of which are very cool that I may take advantage of if I can get them refined, because I tried them out and they're a little bit buggy. But I discovered, first I thought it was a fluke, but today, getting prepped for the show, I actually discovered that it is a definite flaw in the program. I'm not even if I'm not broadcasting, for some reason, the program just arbitrarily, after so many minutes, and it's not consistent as far as the amount of time, it just locks up. It freezes. You can't click on anything. You have to go into, you have to bring up Task Manager, go into Processes, find the XSplit 32-bit process, and kill it. Or reboot, one of the two. And it's very frustrating because... I have no idea what brings it on. And I did quickly, just before the show, I did jump on to their website, to their support forums, to see that there are other people who are experiencing this too. So I'm not alone in this. And of course, their response always is, can you send us a debug text of what was going on? I'm sure that I've looked at those debug texts, and they don't show anything because it all looks exactly fine. There are no errors, nothing going on at the time that it locks up. And unfortunately, when it locks up, it's not recording any other new information. So it's not like the front end freezes and there's still stuff going on in the background so that it can write to this file, this debug file. Hey, I'm trying to do this and it's failing. I'm trying to do this and it's failing. No, it just gets to a point and locks up, and so there's no additional information. So I don't understand how those debug files can be of any use. I've run into similar types of problems before in earlier versions, and I've sent them the debugs, and of course they've been no help. They just eventually have figured out what causes it and worked it out. So I warn you, it depends on, depending on what happens, we may run into an issue here. So Let us go through our normal fare for the beginning of the show. So we start off with typically our movie review, if we get to actually watch a movie, which we did. You know, sadly, I was looking forward to the next to the last show in my list of shows that I'm actually looking forward to for this year, because there's really nothing I've been excited to see compared towards the end of this year, unless it's like a surprise thing, something I did not see showing as post-production, ready to release sometime in 2015. So the movie I thought mistakenly, I don't know why, was going to be released this weekend was the sequel to The Maze Runner, The Scorch Trials. And unfortunately, that's next weekend. And I won't be able to see it next weekend because we will be camping / scuba diving up at Balmoral State Park. So be advised, there will be no show next week. So anyway, but we did go to see a new Christian movie, which is really knocking it out of the park in the box office, which really kind of surprises me, and it's War Room. And at first, I thought, because I had not seen any previews on it, and I kind of had a preconception over what it might be about. I thought maybe it would be a kind of a double entendre or double meaning for, talking about people who are dealing with battles, especially in the current climate, because we were thick in the middle of trying to battle ISIS. And now it seems we're also potentially getting in the middle of, or be caught in the middle of a mess over with China and Russia, who seem to be building up some things, and it's kind of it should give you concern, especially if you're an end times aficionado. But anyway, so I thought it might be a mixture of that plus, the religious aspects and people praying, for the right outcome, wisdom to make the right decisions. But it really wasn't that. It was more of a focus on a family and relationship. If you saw the movie Fireproof, it really takes that up a notch. It was pretty cool. I have to say, I didn't have, even though it's from the same people who made Fireproof, I didn't have as high expectations for this one. But I was pleasantly surprised, and it was an excellent movie. Couldn't help but get emotional, and especially if you care about your family, if you care about your husband or your wife, this is a good movie to see, to help you understand the power of prayer and how important it is that you focus on the right things. One of the comments is made in the movie is that you don't fall out of love, you fall out of focus, and that's true. You stop focusing on the right things, and so there is no falling in and out of love. That is love grows out of your effort, out of your investment in someone, in something. So, but it was really kind of cool. It is a little bit preachy. It didn't bother me because I understand the context, and I really appreciated how well this movie. It was really well done, well acted. But if you are, it's a straight up Christian movie. I mean, there's nothing that they don't make any bones about it, and it's excellent. And I love the old woman in this show. I mean, just everybody should have, and probably a lot of people who are in the faith have a grandmother or had a grandmother like this woman. She was pretty impressive. That's the kind of person you'd love to have in your church, in your life, to help mentor you. A great example. So I definitely recommend you go see it. I'd give it a 9. Couple little things that just kind of bothered me as far as the editing and a little bit of the acting that took it slightly out of the 10 spot, but it was a 9 for me, and it was definitely great family film, especially if you are like Fireproof. If you are somebody who is dealing with issues in your relationship, this is a great movie. It's a perfect movie to see, to help you find your way, to make your battles the right battles. So definitely recommend you check it out. War Room. Excellent movie. So let's see. Tech news. For those of you following the Windows 10 for phones saga, you might be aware that those who are in part of the Windows Insider program, which is voluntary and pretty much open to everybody, you don't... oops. A little buzz there from touching the wrong wire on my system. Anybody can join it. Doesn't require you to sign your life over or give, write in blood or sign over your firstborn or anything like that. No special requirements, just you're willing to participate in feedback, feedback to them, what you like, what you don't like, what works, what doesn't work in the system. And you can get the advanced installations on your Windows Phone for Windows 10. Right now, the current released version is Windows Phone 8.1. But if you are brave enough, you can sign up for this program and install the Windows 10 technical previews. I actually have a Lumia 635, which is a very inexpensive, really inexpensive AT&T Go Phone type device. So I don't have a SIM in it or anything, so I'm not using it as a phone. I'm using my Lumia 1020, which is still the best device out there as far as I'm concerned. I'm using the 635 for my test machine, and I will tell you it's a dog as far as performance. Supposedly, Friday, after a long awaited teasing, we who are in the program were told that the next preview, the next build, was going to be released on Friday, and then all of a sudden, the brakes were put on. Microsoft put the brakes on it at the last second because they found a bug that, and this happened a couple of versions ago, I think, a bug that would prevent you from getting subsequent updates. In other words, if you loaded this update, it would load, it would work, had a few bugs, had some issues, added some features, but you would not, in order to get the next preview build, or if you wanted to wait till the actual final release, you would have to flash your phone back to Windows Phone 8.1 to get the next one, which I've done before. It's a pain in the rear, but it works. So if you want, and as it turns out, before they put the brakes on, a relatively, on a global scale, a handful of people actually got the notification and installed it. And so they've been sharing, you can't really say leaking because Microsoft let it out, but they've been sharing screenshots and their thoughts on different things in this build. So as it stands now, they put the brakes on it, and they said it should be out next week sometime. So I'll give you my opinions on it right now. Supposedly, from those who did get it, it did speed up the performance quite a bit, which I'd be happy to see, because right now it is horribly slow on the Lumia 635. Like my colorful new glass. Let me switch cameras. We of course, we're divers, and the Wade household in Casa de Wade, and so if you were to visit us, you would see that there are a lot of our coloring, style of furniture, all leans toward the tropical, the Caribbean / Texas. So if Texas were in the Caribbean, if Del Rio were in the Caribbean, you would get an idea what our house hat is like. So we've got a lot of those sand colors, browns, things like that. And and then a lot of the teal, aqua kind of coloring. When we skipped our dive trip this year. Normally we go on a dive trip every year. This year we skipped it so that we could renovate our kitchen, which was all the original. Oh man, it was all the original cabinetry and floor, etc., or wall from when the house was built, when the previous owners had it. And so we redid. I finished out the tile because I'd put new tile down, and instead of that peel and stick tile that they had. And we got all new cabinetry and granite countertops. Looks beautiful. Did a great job. Kind of a what's the word I'm looking for? Not distressed, but glazed. White with a light brown glaze to it. And then we got our plates and everything leaning towards that teal or foam green kind of coloring. Again, tying it into our living room area again with the diving colors. And I happened to go to Walmart, and we'd broken almost all of our original regular glassware, small juice glasses and regular tall glasses for drinking sodas and water or whatever. And we only had like one or two left. I said, it's time to get some new ones, but I wanted to go with plastic if possible because they don't break so easily. And I just happened to see they were clearing out, Walmart's getting ready for fall, and so they're clearing stuff out. And so I found these kind of teal colored plastic glasses, and they're perfect for our decor. And so this is my first time enjoying a beverage in our new glasses. It's the little things. If you can't dive all the time, although I dive probably more than most, unless you work in an LDS, a local dive shop, we like to be surrounded by the reminders of the sport that we love so much. So we have a lot of pictures around of us diving or fish that we've seen and things like that. So there's a lot of that going on. So, it's the little things that make it worth enjoying. All right, so meanwhile, Apple, of course, and had their big announcement. They announced the Apple 6 or the iPhone 6s, which people are going to flock to get it, but it's really not a big improvement over the 6. They did add their version of 3D Touch, which was something that actually Nokia was working on with Microsoft, and then Microsoft, for some stupid reason, decided to kill it at the last second. It was under the device was the prototype was under the codename McLaren, whatever that meant. But they had the 3D Touch going, but for some reason they killed it, and pretty much killed anything but the cheapo Windows phones. So that's all they've been kicking out. And then they're trying to say, we've got new Windows 10 flagships coming in October. It's the 950 and the 950 XL, which is a 5.2 and a 6-inch or 5.7 inch, something like that device. And I'm sorry, the specs are about on par with pretty much everybody else. Camera is not as good as this. It's a 20 for the Lumia. It's the new one. It's going to be a 20 megapixel, which is like the one in the 1520. It's not a 41 megapixel camera like this. They need to take this camera and boost it. But interestingly, the new iPhone 6s only has a 13 megapixel camera, which my wife's digital SLR has 18. All the Windows phones, the higher end Windows phones, have 20 megapixels. So what's up with that? So that's going to be a meh camera. And they went with a smaller in order to keep it thin, I guess, to support their 3D touch technology, which, as far as I'm concerned, is a gimmick anyway. But they had to go with a smaller battery. So they claim it'll have the same life. So I'm wondering what in the heck they could possibly do to have the addition of what 3D touch is going to cost energy-wise. And then coupled with a smaller battery, I don't see how it could be possible that they're going to have the same battery life. I'll bet you, in reality, it will be less than the previous iPhone. So I just don't. I'll be if you're looking for a really new whiz bang thing, I don't see that the 6S is really worth it. But if you're one of those that will chase after the newest thing just because it's the newest thing, have at it. Throw your money away. Waste your money. Let's see. And they also announced a iPad Pro, which is clearly every way, shape, or form, it's a ripoff of the Surface Pro 3, which I love the device. But, you're not going to be able to do the same kinds of things that you can do with the Surface Pro 3. It's that simple. And Microsoft's about to announce, supposedly in October, along with their new high-end phones. I refuse to call them flagships because they're not flagships. They're going to be releasing the Surface Pro 4, so it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. I do know it's going to have the USB-C connector, which is the new one that is reversible. It's not keyed like the USB 1, 2, and 3 are. So we'll see where that goes. So you probably need to get adapter cables if you're connecting stuff to it. But basically, Apple pretty much stole everything, their ideas or everything from the Surface Pro line of 2-in-1s or tablets with keyboards. And I think they're running out of ideas, frankly. So, still would like to have a co-host for the show. So, but since it's now called This Guy Who Dives, we're not... it wouldn't be as long a gig necessarily unless you chose to make it so, and we certainly encourage that, but we'll see what happens. You may remember last week we were talking about our good friend Courtney Jones, who is a very talented singer and actress and just all-around great person. She's our current Miss Del Rio, and she was competing last weekend, Labor Day weekend, in the Miss Texas USA pageant. While she wowed people and was loved by everybody there, she struck up some great friendships, and she unfortunately did not win her bid for Miss Texas USA, but still a great experience. Now she represented Del Rio in absolute flawless fashion. So got to say we're very, very proud of Courtney for doing such an excellent job. I mean, looking so great as she does. She's just she's just a wonderful young woman, and so congratulations on doing as well as you did. So, but we're glad to have you back home. I'm glad your family are. I'm sure your family is too, because it's not a cheap endeavor in terms of money or time to go through the pageant system. It's very expensive. So. I'm sure they're going to be recovering for a few weeks here. So, all right, moving right along. Went on a search and recovery dive today, which was interesting. I had a fellow diver whom I did not know call me and ask if there would be a way of getting hold of some gear and some assistance in trying to find his wallet. He was out at an area that I've not been diving before, out at Lake Amistad, in a boat in a point near Blackbrush Point, and they were swinging back around the point to get back to the boat ramp, and he had his wallet in one of those smallish watertight cases. It has the two latches that clamp it down, and it's got O-rings, etc. But it was sitting on the dash of the boat, but it wasn't sealed, and it wasn't battened down. It came full speed around the corner, and it flew off and hit the water and then sank because it wasn't sealed. So literally what we ended up doing, and this was pretty cool. We met out at the point and kind of did a pre-search briefing how I was going to do it. And then we went out to the site and he said, well, let me see if I can duplicate, because he had another similar case to what he had. Let's see if we can duplicate what happened. So we took a first run. So he set the case on but he closed it so it wouldn't sink. Put the case on the dash of the boat, and we came whipping around, but unfortunately, I guess it was lodged in too secure a spot on the dash, so when we whipped around the corner, it didn't fly off. So, take two. So we spun back around, and he moved it to a little bit easier location to fly off, and so we duplicated the run, and sure enough, there it went. It went flying off into the water. So then we carefully, and luckily today, there was no wind. I mean, it was just the hint of a breeze, the fine hint of a breeze. And so we carefully moved over to where the container was floating, and then he dropped anchor and a buoy so we could have a point to start with. Now, this is a lake, and it was somewhat close to shore, but you can imagine the variety, because he had tried to free dive and search the area, but you can imagine the daunting task if you were to look at the area that we were diving or that we were searching to even get close to where this thing sunk. And when he first explained to me about how he lost the wallet, I was under the impression the wallet itself had flown off. And so, if something like that hits the water and it's 20 to 40 feet was his estimation, it's going to want to do these things. And so it could go the longer the distance, the deeper the water, the more opportunity for it to go flip off into different directions. So it could be in a 30-foot radius if we pinpointed where it actually went in. So there we were. We've got the point marked. I feel sneeze coming on. We got the point marked, and so we suited up, pre-dive check. We negotiated, we talked about our signals, what we're going to do. The plan was I was going to use a search pattern, and I had already thought about this, and this was going to be the best way to try to do this, is we were going to do a expanding circle, a circular spiral. And so the way that works is you start in the center. As a matter of fact, let me switch to, here you go. So you have a point, usually another diver, who is at the center of your search pattern. So we followed his buoy line down, his anchor line down to the bottom. It was about 28 feet of water. And I said, okay, well, we negotiate. I said, either I can be in the middle and you can do the spiral, or you can be in the middle, I can do the spiral. And since he said, well, you've been diving out here, and it's been a year since he's been diving, I'll just work the center. So I let him work the center. So I had the dive line, and so as you see in the description here, you basically just go in a circle, and then as you complete the 360 turn, then you expand out from there. You let some more line out. And the visibility, plus your ability to actually reach, if you have to do a by touch search, because visibility, I will tell you, was still as bad as last week. It was about 5 to 8 feet. So you grab the line, you start circling around, holding onto the line, and you carefully search. And it's a slow, methodical process. You don't want to go any faster than you can actually visually absorb what's going on. Now, he explained to me that the wallet was in the case, but the case wasn't closed. So the case, when it sunk, could have opened up, and he figured if I find the case, the wallet should be nearby. So we really thought there was no chance that the wallet would be in the case. Well, so as it turns out, we get out there, and I didn't even complete one full circle around him, and I came across the case. I mean, I was stretched out pretty far because we had looked at the immediate area around where we were, basically to 8 feet out. And so I extend myself out to about 16 feet. So I couldn't see him anymore. I just saw the line disappearing into the murk. But I'm cruising around in the circle, and within 30 seconds, that's got to be a record for me. Within 30 seconds, I find the case. Now, he lost this last Friday. So it had a week sitting in the bottom, and believe it or not, it actually had quite a bit of silt collected on it already, which was kind of surprising to me. But I found it, and luckily the wallet was still in there, so I immediately hightailed it back up the line to him and brought him the wallet, and we high-fived underwater. And then so we came up to the surface so he could give that to his son, who was still on the boat. And then I said, well, since we're here, let's go ahead and just burn off some air. Let's knock out a dive. Since he hadn't been diving in a while, we'll just follow the shoreline there and just kind of see what we see, which wasn't much. A few fish at about 20 feet or less. And that was about it. But and so just as an aside, the visibility, again, 5 to 8 feet. Temperature still, he was not even wearing a wetsuit, and he was comfortable. I was still in my 3 mil shorty. It was about 83 degrees again, just like last weekend. It was comfortable. But so that gave me an idea for something I should talk about in this show, which is that the search patterns work. Even though we found it very quickly, we followed the methodical process of using a pattern. You want to try, of course, obviously your success is increased if you have a good idea where to start. Now, in this case, we were able to duplicate the conditions of how he lost the wallet, which again was kind of a miraculous event all by itself. But there are different patterns that work for different situations and different conditions. So in this case, I told him, I said, we'll try, because I've never been in this area before. We will try the circular spiral, which allows you to use the line. Now, this does not work if you're in an area where there's a lot of big rocks or trees, because the line obviously could get snagged and you can't do the 360. So I was mindful of that. There's alternate patterns, which we'll discuss in a moment, that you can use in case. Now, this is one of the possible patterns you can use. So this is where you're typically going to be starting in kind of an open area where you're just basically doing a radial search out from the center. These are also techniques that we use when we're teaching the rescue diver course, because if you have somebody who's reporting they've lost their dive buddy, then when was the last time you saw him? Well, that would be your starting point. So, and remember, if you've taken the course, you have the 1 minute rule. You and your dive buddy stick together. And if you lose your buddy, you look for no longer than a minute, and then you come up. So you come straight up. So here's the thing. If you've come straight up, remember where you're at, because if your buddy hasn't also come up within a minute, there's potentially something fatal involved. So what you need to do is make sure that you know where we're going to start our search from, because that's where we're going to drop down, is where you came up. So one of the ways you can do a search using a pattern is the circular spiral. Now, another way you can do this, if you're looking for something that is big, that could be upright. And again, this requires that the requirement is that you don't have trees and things like that standing in the way, and that's using a circular spiral with a snag line. And what that means is exactly as it sounds. You have the center point, as in the picture here, but instead of starting from the center and winding your way out, you go out. You take the line and go all the way out on the radius, as far out as either the line allows or that you believe that the person or the object that you're looking for could not be any further out from. Okay. And then you basically kind of have that line somewhat hugging the terrain, and you are swimming at the farthest radial from the center point, hoping that the line is going to snag on whatever it is you're searching for. And then you just have to follow the line back to where it snagged, and you've found your object. So that's a variation on the circular spiral. So now, what if you have a lot of trees and things like that, or the terrain is so rough that you can't, that a circular spiral is not going to work? Well, funny you should ask. Let's see if I can get this to work. There we go. You have a spiral square, and this is done basically on a combination of using counting your kicks and compass. So what you're going to do is you're going to start at a center point typically, and you're not going to be using a line. You're going to then start, as you see in the diagram here, you're going to work a direction for basically no further than what you can see, because obviously you don't want to have gaps in between your spirals. So then you make a 90-degree turn and follow that for a short way, make another 90-degree turn and follow that. And basically, as you come up to closing the square, the box, then you go past that sufficient distance to allow a little bit of an overlap, but basically so you can expand the square. So, and then you work your way out, as you see in the picture here. Ending your search, obviously, at the farthest distance. Now, variations on this allow you to go, after you've completed the square, is then to do, you could then add a compass grid, or you could do a diagonal to cut across the corners. There are a couple of variations you can add there, but this is the type of pattern you would use, similar to the circular spiral, but you would do this using kicks and compass turns in order to affect your spiraling to find the object, because you don't have a line that you can attach, because it would get snagged on things you don't want it to get snagged on. Now, another variation, this would be where you're searching radially out from, let's say, a cliff area or shore. You know, we know that the person entered the water or the thing fell in the water, but it could have moved any direction out from here. You're not going to, obviously there's not going to be a circle involved, but you can do what they call as a swinging pendulum. And as you see, it's kind of the same feel. You start on a radial and you fan out using a line, and then you extend it out a little bit further. It's basically a half spiral is what you're doing. And you're just going back and forth until you get as far out as the line or the distance you believe that the object could be no further than. And then the next version that you can do, and this requires a little bit more setup, and it's called a jack stay. Now, what you have here is a pattern where you see the two lines on either side here. You have points where you can pin them down, anchor them, whatever, and the line stretches between the 2 points on each side. Now, what you then do is, between the two lines, you have a search line that you're going to attach, and it's loosely attached. So what you're going to do is start at one point, and you work your way from, in this case, this picture, from bottom to top. So you search holding on to the line. This would be a good one to do if visibility is horrible. But it also is challenged by, potentially challenged by debris or trees or whatever. So as you move from one end to the other, you move the line up a distance, basically body width or hand-to-hand width, as you see in the diagram here. And then you work your way across And then you work. See, so in this example, you see the diver started on one side of the line, reaching out to one side, goes all the way over, then comes back, stretching out the other side. So basically, one line gives you double width because it's the anchor between two sides. You could do, this would be one that you could use two divers with, so they could each go either one side to the other, or which would really, the perfect idea is to each start from opposite sides. And so when you pass each other and then you get to the end, both of get to the other end, then you move it up a bit and you reverse your process. And you work your way through till the guideline is from one end to the other. And again, this would be a good one in where visibility is tremendously challenged. But you could mess this up very easily if you're not careful as far as how much you figure you're sliding the guideline along the jack stays. Now, a variation on this is called the snag line, and it is exactly as you would see. So you have your two jack stays, and you simply are going from both ends, following along. You're moving that snag line across instead of using it as a guideline to go back and forth. You're simply dragging it along the jack stays, hoping that it snags whatever you're looking for. And again, this only works if, like, let's say you have a sandy bottom or a silty bottom, and you know the thing, like a car or whatever, or boat that sank, is going to be sticking up so that the line can actually catch it. Okay? And that's the snag line. And then probably the most involved one to do is the compass grid search, or what is affectionately known as mowing the lawn. Although this isn't how I mow the lawn, but this is how a lot of people mow the lawn. So basically, you go out to your search area, and what you typically want to do is, let's say in the picture here, the shore, let's say the shore is to the right. So you go out along one of your anchors, one of your anchor lines or perimeter lines, go all the way out to the furthest point that you think it could be. And then you start using compass headings. You go from one perpendicular point to the other, and then you make a 90-degree turn towards the shore, and then work your way back the other to the your starting perimeter point. Make another 90-degree turn toward the shore, and then follow that along for a distance. And you basically zigzag your way through the way some people mow their lawn. And eventually you hit the shore. Hopefully along the way you've found the object that you're trying to find. This one's can be a more methodical approach. And a couple of ways you can do this. It could be done as one person doing the compass while the other one's doing the actual searching. It could be done if, and again, I don't advocate solo diving, but if you have two divers well-versed in compass use, you could, both of you, search a much wider, a bigger area by working, what's the word I'm looking for? Consecutive patterns, where these two patterns share a common edge. So those are just, and there are variations on all of these, but those are some of the more commonly used search patterns. Again, we use these types of things in the rescue course because you may have to search for a lost or unconscious diver, or potentially a diver who has expired because they had a catastrophic failure, or they didn't follow their dive skills. They haven't practiced their dive skills. So the patterns do work. I've definitely showed today that within 30 seconds, a circular spiral pattern helped find the guy's wallet and case, and he got them all back. And it was funny, his dive card, of course everything else was in there, but his dive card was in the wallet. And of course, when he called me up and said, I'm a PADI diver, he said, but I don't have my card because it's in the wallet that I lost in the lake. And I said, no problem. If it's PADI, which it was, you can just give me your name, your full name, and your date of birth, and I can look you up online, because those who are in the professional categories, dive master, assistant, instructor, or master instructor, course director, you can go on to the PADI Pro site, and you can actually, they have an online service that you simply plug in that information, and it will reveal, it'll show you what their dive number is. It will show you when they got certified, who their instructor was, and all that good information. So this guy, interestingly enough, he actually got certified a year before I did for my very first certification, my basic certification. But I since, powered through and got my advanced and rescue and instructor. But he hadn't been diving in a year. But he's been diving in some cool places, which was neat. Okinawa and what else did he say? Oh, Hawaii, of course, and the Bahamas and places. And he's been to Curacao. So anyway, the patterns do work. I cannot stress enough learning how to use some of the basic search patterns. Anybody can do the spiral one. Again, you have to worry about whether or not there's debris that could snag the line. But that one is an easy one to use. If you can go to Walmart and get a rope and just have your dive buddy start at the central point, and you work your way out in the spiral to find whatever it is that's missing. It worked really well here. That was the fastest search I've ever done. 30 seconds. It was amazing. So let me check nobody in the chat room for the moment. So that was a good time, and I got to dive, so I was happy about that. The worst dive I ever had was wonderful, so I was glad to be able to get in the water. Had a good time, and not a lot of traffic. Like I said, it was hardly even a breeze, so it made the search easy, made getting into the water easy, except when boats would come by. Then, the boats rocking and splashing, we're trying to get out of the water and all that fun stuff. So familiarize yourself with some basic search patterns. You don't have to be specially trained, although there are specialties. PADI has specialties. I'm sure some of the other agencies have specialties for that kind of thing. Some of those require you to be up on your nav skills, so practice those. Practice using your compass. You get such a light introduction to its use during the course. And most people who go diving, quite frankly, what do? They go with dive operations where they're following a dive master around. So you really don't use the compass at all. You're just following their leader. You're just following wherever they're going. So, but I can't stress enough that you keep those skills up. Now, if you dive the Lake Amistad area, I got to tell you, you've got a great opportunity here because in Scuba Cove, where you don't have to run a dive flag because it's supposed to be protected, we have what I call the course. A nav course is not really much of a nav course, but if all you've got under your belt is straight line, out and back navigation experience, this can help you refine that a little bit, get some practice with it. So if you drop down on right out off the shore there, if you drop down on what we call the dive chest, I've shown you pictures of that in previous episodes, and then you set your compass to about 275 and follow that, you will hit the smaller of the two sunken boats, and then you can check it out and then set it to 278 and going out further, and you will go up and down because it has a drop and everything. But then you'll hit the big boat, and then you could turn around and reverse your course and work your way back to the dive chest. So it's good little straight line practice, not difficult or anything. But I definitely encourage you to do that if you happen to dive Scuba Cove out at Lake Amistad. Well, we're running down to the end here. It'll be one of the few times that I actually get done on time, if not a little bit early. Let me pull up the administrivia. So we're coming up on our last dive class scheduled dive class for the year, and that's September 24th through the 28th. So make sure if you haven't already signed up for it, it's a bit late to do so. But if you have done the online portion and you're just needing to get the practical parts done, the pool work and the open water, then all you have to do is print out that certificate and get it to me, and I will include you in the class. But after this class, I won't have any more scheduled, but if I get interest, somebody wants to do a class, they can let me know, and we can try and work something out. Imagine the weather's going to start to cool down here at some point. Somebody said today, and I find it hard to believe, but somebody said today that this next week, the mornings are going to start dropping into the 60s. I find that hard to believe, but we'll see what happens. As I said earlier in the show, there will be no show next week because we are going to enjoy a fantastic weekend at Balmorhea State Park. Looking forward to that. We haven't gotten to go all year there, and it really kind of angers me because we normally go several times during the year. It's just I love the drive up there. From Del Rio, it's a 4-hour drive. You follow 90 on up to I forget which highway takes you, cuts through Sanderson and then takes you up to Fort Stockton. And then you get onto I-10 there and follow about for another 45 miles west on I-10. And you'll see the Toya Vale Balmorhea exit. And you take that and it cuts you south of I-10. And you get to go through the little sleepy town of Toya Vale and then to Balmorhea State Park. And it's a beautiful area at the foot of the Fort Davis Mountains, spring-fed water. I've shown you video before, and it's a beautiful area. It's a lot of fun, easy diving, visibility's great. And we're going with some friends of ours, one of which was one of my former students, and so looking forward to enjoying a nice weekend away doing that. So we'll have no show next weekend, and, of course, if you are in the area and you need air fills, love for you to check out Mike McCarson out at Broke Mill RV Park out on Highway 90 West by the new loop that's there. Just give him a call ahead of time so he knows you're coming so he can make sure the system's spun up. He's 830-719-2935. And for as long as they're still open, A Pet's Wish needs your donations of money and time as well. So if you could please find it in your heart to dedicate a little bit of time, Tara and I volunteer every Monday night. It's a lot of work to do. We're running as fast as we can just to stay in place. That's how monumental the task is. But many hands make work light. So if you could find it in your heart to donate time and or money, we do both. That would really appreciate it. And more importantly, those little dogs and cats would appreciate it. If you'd like to follow what's going on, just check us out, delriodiveclub.com, or follow us on the Facebook. Just look for Del Rio Dive Club. Or you can send us a message via Skype, TGWD. TGWD, which used to stand for Two Guys Who Dive, but now it's This Guy Who Dives. So, all right. So that pretty much finishes up. It is 9 o'clock. And like I said, we won't be here next week, but hopefully we'll be here the week after. Lots of big things going on at our church, so we're excited for some big changes there. So be kind of preoccupied with that, but I'm hoping to still keep getting dives in every week. That'd be awesome. And maybe get some video and share it with you. And if you have any ideas, questions, comments, or even complaints, I'll entertain those if you're not too nasty about it. Just send it to me via email. Just look for robert.wade@cetifox.net. Or you can follow me on the Twitter. Just look for Robert CFP, which stands for Ceti Fox Productions. Or you can just leave messages on the Facebook page too, because I respond to those as well. So we hope you enjoy the show, and we will see you in a couple of weeks on the very next episode of This Guy Who Dives. See ya.